Hello, everybody. We are live here on Tuesday night on the Dr. Boz channel, and I have a really special, incredible story for you tonight. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the story, dive a little deeper in, and then end with an interview from somebody that, well, inspired me. As I look at her story, at 67 years old, she had a hit of a diagnosis that no woman wants to hear or man wants to hear, where breast cancer was the front and center part of her life. With a family history of lots of breast cancer, this was shocking news, but not something that was off of her radar. She did reach for the best of the best care with a double mastectomy, had lymph nodes that were negative, margins that were clean, and then headed back into a life of saying, is it over? Is it over? For several years, she did great. In the year of 2024, she was struggling last fall with some chest pain. Ended up in the emergency room, and as they did a CAT scan trying to figure out why none of the markers for her heart looked bad, but what was causing this discomfort. And a 3.5 centimeter mass in her liver was further biopsied a few days later to find a recurrence of breast cancer. So now at an even later age of 71, she has recurrent breast cancer, and then a really heavy setback. As she was in the hospital, she was told by her medical team that the markers that she'd been looking at to see if her breast cancer was back, well, the test from 6 months ago showed that, yes, indeed, there was a marker that was positive. And even the marker she did a few days before going into the emergency room was also severely high, but the medical team had missed it. And now she was front and center in the middle of a life-threatening diagnosis, trying to find a way to say, how do I stay in any of this? How do I find control of any of this? And this is a story of faith. This is a story of perseverance. And how do you survive when the world is telling you you've got some really tough diagnoses? We're going to tell this story a little bit further as it goes on. I can't, I'm very not only inspired by what her case has taught me, but it was one of the highlights that we used in this recent 21-day class. And I don't think there was a dry eye or a heart that didn't swell as you heard the story. We're going to unpack the story in just a minute and also tell you a little bit more about what happened and what those markers really were. We're going to ask some pretty intimate questions of our guest, and I think you'll leave with not only some understanding of what we're doing about it, but also what is she going to do in the next year? So my numbers today, I have just come back from Iceland. If you ever need to put another ring on your bucket list, add Iceland. I did not turn on my computer or my phone. I took like 5 pictures, but my brain is blown for what this place on earth, but it looks unearthly. So if you've been to Iceland, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I was not there while the volcano erupted, but it's supposed to erupt any day now. And I will tell you that I can't believe my husband and I have been married 30 years and it took us that long to find Iceland. But I am fasting today. I did get a little bit of a cold on the way back on that last airplane ride home. So I've got some medication in me that I think is pushing my ketones down a little bit, but I'm still pretty proud at the end of a week of vacation that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. All right, I'm going to do a little bit better storytelling here as I talk about our friend Cindy. So yeah, one of the most powerful parts about having a case like the 21 day is that you do get to have an intimate understanding of people, of the same kind of stories that you get to hear as a physician. We share with the whole group of students, and we look at the journeys for what do you do next. As I look at some of the highlights that I didn't cover in the first introduction there, I'll start with Cindy's history being at the age of 29, she started having some very serious health problems, like things that would take her to the doctor, and a family history that the family tree keeps taking away folks on in her pedigree from heart disease and cancer, and really she kind of always was waiting for, when is it my turn to have this? The stress in her family was one thing, but having heart disease young, having cancer in the family was something that she heard about as a young woman growing up. And then at the age of 49, she had her first serious heart attack. Again, a 49-year-old woman heart attack is very young. Rushed to the hospital, they put a stent in her, and she gets the best medical care that was offered at the time. Again, this was 2003. And in that, she couldn't handle any of the medications. They caused her severe pain. She finally talked the doctors into letting her not take the medications. And for 16 years, that artery in her heart was held open by a stent. But then in 2019, at the age of 65, that stent reblocked and she was rushed back to the hospital. And again, the same spot was opened up to give her another lease on life. And I really think her story of survival instincts, or God's got a big plan for her, which I think you'll hear about before we're done, because they asked her to take a baby aspirin, knowing that all these problems had been haunting her with medications in the past. And within a few weeks, she had a severe, massive bleed from the aspirin and gets rushed to the hospital, nearly dies from that bleed. And boy, that again wiped her out. And only 2 years later, at the age of 67, is when she got the diagnosis of an invasive ductal breast cancer. Knowing her pedigree, she said, nope, we're going to do a bilateral mastectomy. We're going to take out those lymph nodes. And then she just prayed that all of those lymph nodes would be negative. I'm going to show this slide here about what happens next in her story. And so here is the part of her history that I just really don't want you to miss. When she was asked to follow her breast cancer over the years since it was removed, she went in every few months, like clockwork, to get this marker checked. And specifically, they're looking at the cellular free DNA that was specific to her breast cancer. And she goes in every time the doctor was asking her to. In the meantime, there were several other things that were complicating her story. She tried to have implants put in, had a severe reaction for over a year and a half, or at least a year, tried to get those breast implants to settle down, and eventually they just had to remove the implants, but really caused havoc with her health, all of the inflammatory reactions that were happening to her body. So I want you to notice something here, that little triangle at the bottom of the screen there, that is actually positive. That is not 0.0. That's the report that came back in February of 2024. So she goes in to get her labs done and nobody tells her anything. And then 6 months later, she does what she's supposed to. She goes in to get her labs checked one more time. And now it's in August of 2024, it was almost 8. So again, much higher than the zeros, not what you want to be seeing when you're looking for a marker of cancer. And it was the next few days where she ended up with chest pain again. And so in the emergency room, not for anything to do with her cancer, but because the hospital systems were linked, they were able to see that her markers were elevated and no one had told her. So I want you to welcome to the stage. We're going to finish telling the story together. I am very excited to bring, let's hold on. I got a guest side by side. Here we go. There we go. Bring to the front of the stage, Cindy Larson. Thank you for saying yes to coming to a live YouTube show. I really, again, as I left for Iceland, my husband he says when I do the 21 day, I use up all my words. And then when I get after the 21 day, I need to use my words with somebody. So I tell him all about what happened in the class. And I can't tell you, I think it was the first 3 days I kept repeating your story. Not only is it something that I have seen people look in the face of a recurrent diagnosis, and especially when they're doing everything they, were told to do, only to find out that the medical team dropped the ball. Can you share about that moment when you are in the hospital trying to figure out what's going on in your heart and somebody tells you, oh no, 6 months ago you had a positive marker that your breast cancer was back? Can you share that moment?
Yes. Well, it was maddening. I think my first reaction wasn't even fear. It was just, I was furious. I thought I trusted the system that said, trust me, that I was, yes, doing exactly what they said I should do. Get these blood markers, knowing that my body is extremely sensitive to any kind of medications. I couldn't even take the aromatase inhibitor, right? I couldn't do it. I tried and I couldn't function well. So my oncologist agreed, okay, but we're good. We're good because we're getting this blood marker done. Yep. We'll jump into action. If it ticks up at all, we'll jump into action. I said, okay, then I'll know I have to do that. I'll have to find a way to take the
medications or something.
Right, something. I'll jump in that game when I have to. And again, it was just the information highway that the teams that didn't get the information to the other team and pass the ball and get it where it needed to be. In all honesty, I don't blame my oncologist because he is, he can only do what information is given to him. But in that moment, the only person I had to blame was him.
Right. I've been there.
And so my primary care doctor is one of my dearest friends. And when this information was discovered, she was right with me. I mean, she was like, oh my God, this is wrong. And this is wrong on every level. This shouldn't have happened. She actually is the one who called my oncologist and said, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble. Mm-hmm. And of course, he said, well, can I call her? Should I call her? And she said, well, you better do something, right? Because we're in a world of hurt here. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, get ready because she is that.
A woman.
And, they know me. They know me. I'm very passionate about the things I believe in.
Wow. So, and then, it really is a survival moment where the part that gives me goosebumps again, thinking of your story, is the trust. Like, okay, I've had struggles. I put implants in and they totally tore up my immune system for 2 years. I took them out and I finally feel like I can live again. And in that time, setback after setback, family member after family member is dying from cancer or dying from heart disease. And you're still alive, but now there's a really big danger signal. Like that number is shooting up pretty quickly from the time that they checked it. Then you go in the emergency room and then within like another 10 days, it doubled.
Right.
And you're like, uh-oh.
Right. So, the oncologist did call me and we talked for almost 2 hours. I mean, it was one of the most emotional exchanges I've ever had, and it was raw. Mm. And he was, I was helping him doing the thing that I've done all my life, which is make somebody feel better about the things that are going on, to fix it. Mm-hmm. I became the healer in this situation. Like, oh gosh, I've made him feel so terrible. Now I need to make him feel better. Right. But we really bonded in this exchange because my plea to him was, you weren't watching and I depended on you. And he took it. He said, you're right. What can I do? What can I do to help you? And I said, get me out of this mess. How do we unwind this? Mm-hmm. And he was so protective of me and willing to do anything he could. And he got the ball rolling, the scans, had to make sure it wasn't now also metastatic in my brain or my lungs or my bones. And, within 2 weeks, I was at a interventional radiologist getting the biopsy scheduled, which was a few days later. And then you have to wait 10 days or whatever. And then we went in for the
Right,
seated radiation.
So there's a mass in the liver, and the first thing I think of is, oh, it's metastatic breast cancer, but you have to prove that. So you need a tissue, you need a pathologist, you need to wait, you need to do markers. I mean, there's all these steps, and it is a master puppeteer coordination that it's not a wonder that we don't have more medical errors when it's this advanced and complicated. And, Cindy, I have been at the receiving end of a team trying really hard to do it right in a system that is super information dense. And you think, oh yeah, how many normals did you have? 2.5 years of 0, 0, 0, 0. So not hearing anything makes you think, oh, it must be 0, must be fine.
Right.
And I've had that patient looking at me saying, you missed this. It is awful. It is awful. And you want to put your blinders on and say, oh, please just fire me as a doctor so that I don't have to see you again because this is so hard. And of course that's weak, but that's true. Of the easiest thing for your doctor to do would have been you to run away to another doctor and find a lawyer. It's probably what his office manager feared the most, but I was inspired to hear, no. What did you say? What did you tell him in those moments of, here's a different way to do this together? You were comforting him, you said.
Right. I said, he said, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? And I said, you can do this differently. You can change the system. You can make sure you see every one of your patients as a total human being. We are not just numbers. We are not statistics. We, we have differing body types, and you just can't put us in a lump sum and say we're going to approach it this way, and let's do this chemo or throw it out, because our stories are so unique. And up until that point, he had been so respectful of my wishes that I was not going to put something in my body that would hurt me. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, he begged me to take the aromatase inhibitor. He begged me to take it. And I said, let's see, let's hold on. Let's just hold off. And so, we came to that decision that we'll follow the markers, follow the yellow brick road, and we'll do what we have to do when we get there. So, I have requirements. I just said, you don't have to stay my doctor, but no, I'm going to stay mad for a while because it's a survival technique for me. I'm mad at you, and I've got to work through this to forgive you, forgive the system, forgive everything, because I don't want the weight of it on my heart, on my back, in my head. I have to put all my attention on healing now. And how am I going to get there? What's the best way to get there? Well, I knew that I had been studying keto and carnivore. Right. This was the fun part, and I knew that I had to do something about I didn't have bad numbers anywhere in like high glucose and all that. I had some spikes every once in a while, but, I didn't have any other issues. And I wasn't overweight. I had, an extra 10, an extra 15, but I was drinking wine. I was eating ice cream and chocolate and, doing all the things you think you should get to do by the time you turn 70.
Yeah. And that's,
so breeze on in.
That's a level of stress that is super high. So when you look at things where you're going to reach for coping skills, I can't hardly hold any of that. Ice cream and wine sound like a great answer when you're saying, this is so unfair, right? Yeah.
Right. But, I knew I had to change some things in my life, but I wasn't clear on exactly what it needed to be. Because overall I have a wonderful life. I was concentrating on my diet and, keeping stress down and not being so reactive to life, and, start observing more. And so while I'm studying, deep diving on YouTube between, the carnivore doctors and then finding you, the keto, all the keto influencers, and I don't know, it was in the middle of that, and I was kind of playing around with how do I get my body in a state of ketosis? I was learning the keto mojo.
Okay.
I bought all the tools.
So
I got all the things.
I pulled up your numbers here from like October to November, and here's I'll orientate the folks on what this shows me is that her glucose is in the gray numbers here, and her ketones are the blue. So you can see early in October, she must have been really trying because she got her ketones up to like 6 or something here. Let's see if I can hover over there. Yeah, so 5.7, but the glucose was really good. And then you get to the end of October, and that stress has kind of settled down. So now the blood sugars are more than, they're triple digits. So they're in that 100-ish range. And boy, those ketones went right back to where they were before at the, less than 1 range. And that's not bad. But when you're trying to fight cancer, tell me some of the things you were thinking about. What were you trying in like October of that year?
Well, where you see that rise in the glucose and the drop in the ketones is exactly the point where I had the radiation, the seeded radiation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So my whole body was stressed. It wasn't just, my head.
That's not ice cream, huh? No, that's radiation.
Well, I mean, I did eat some ice cream during that time. Yeah, I did.
I don't blame you.
My brother came from California to hang out with me and take care of me that first week. And we did some ice cream and some
ice cream
sweet
therapy.
All right. So, but, I was studying still, but I knew. I'll just back up just a little bit, that when I was going through all the scans, the one that was the most uncomfortable for me was the one in the bone scan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. It takes forever for that thing. And it's so loud. It's louder than any of the other scans. And it was the last one that needed to clear. And it was, is it in our bones? Because had the cancer been somewhere else, I wouldn't have just had the option of the Y90 radiation. So, I got in that thing, and it's like an hour and 20 minutes long. And I just said, okay, I can't stand this noise. I said, God, I really don't think you are going to make me die of cancer. I don't think that's what you have planned for me. So give me the skinny. Tell me what it is you really want me to do. I mean, I feel wonderful. I feel great. And anyway, I thought you were going to take me out with a heart attack. I mean,
that was our deal.
Right? But cancer, I don't think so. I said, so I'm not finished with life. I have a lot that I still want to do. And I don't mean do things, but I just have more things to accomplish. And I'm happy. I love the people I love. And I just said, tell me what I need to do to get rid of this. Just speak to me and I will do it. I'll do whatever you say. And as the machine turned off and the noise started getting less, and they started backing me out of that tube, I heard like it was a commandment, and starve it. Wow. That is exactly what I heard. Starve it. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. Starve it. That's what I'm going to do. And I got on YouTube. I wasn't even worried about the radiation anymore. I knew whatever that was, it wasn't going to, I wasn't getting cut open. This was hopefully going to do the trick. And I just decided I'm going to find out how to starve it. And that's what I did. And then I finally landed on you. Thank God. I mean, I'd been watching you, but I was trying to find that perfect piece that let everything fall into place for me, that this is something I can do. You're a healer that I know I can follow. I love your energy, and you're a ball of fire that just puts it out there, and you've been a terrific leader. And that's what happened. And then it came up while I was healing from the radiation that you had this 21-day metabolic kick course. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I think that's there for me. I mean, it must be for me. So I signed up, and I again, I was trying to do all the work, but it wasn't until I got into class.
Yeah. So
all the tools that you have in that class.
Yep. So I'm going to hold you off just a second, because I'll show the folks that last scene was there in November. This is the scene in December. And again, she's gotten through the hardest part of that radiation. She's now trying to talk to her doctor about ketones and starving cancer. And if you're in the traditional lane of medicine, that can be a difficult conversation to have. But there is nothing like the voice of God to motivate a woman, especially one who says, I'm just not supposed to die of cancer. That was not what the plan was. I have never heard you say those words to me before, God. So we are fighting this. And, when you look at the struggle, it's not that she couldn't make ketones. I mean, there's ketones of 2.2. That's on December 18th. And, she's in the thick of it. She's in a season where she can't afford to not get those numbers to go down, but that's easier said than done. So there's the month of December, and then we march into January, and halfway through January, or like January 20th or something, she starts this class called the 21 Day. So I'm going to show off right there as the first part of the class, but then I'm going to flip back over and let you talk about what happened as you prepared for the class, and then you step into a season where, again, these are a bunch of strangers that you have in your classroom. And why don't you just share what happened next?
Well, of course, I've never done anything like this before. So I didn't have any set notion of what it would be like. I had taken your online, do it at your pace keto continuum. But I piddled with that because it was like, I'd skip over things and I'd go, sardines, I'm not doing that. All that, I'm not doing that. I'll do something else. But I think that intuitively I knew that once I locked into this class, that I was going to do exactly what I was taught to do, because that's how I learn best. The tribe, the people that we all hold each other accountable, and we're all trying to be successful, to be an example for each other, right? It's like, if I can do it, you can do it. But I also have to say that in between all that, I did get your book Any Way You Can.
Right.
And I've actually listened to the Audible twice, because when I get down, when I think, this is not easy, I just put the Audible in. I just listen. It's like having a good friend telling me, you got this, you've got this. And I think about Grandma Rose, your mother, and I think, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. I can do this. So, that's her legacy as well, very far reaching. And I hope that my story can do the same for somebody at some point in their lives. But the leading up to it, I cheated a little bit because it was Christmas and it was my birthday. And I went, oh man, I'm going to have to put all this stuff, I'm going to have to surrender to this. And I was determined to do it. So when the class started, I thought, this is amazing. Watching my numbers, I really did not cheat. I didn't. It was so, I challenged myself, and I might have cheated if I was by myself, but I'm not by myself, because there are 200 other people in this online class that live, that you teach in the morning, you lecture, and then we go to another class, and our coach, assimilates everything and then asks our questions and answers our questions. And my coach, Kim Cates, was amazing.
She's great.
And I was blessed with a great group of classmates. So,
and right back at you, though. I mean, it has really been, again, one of those moments where when I first went to do this class, and I told my team in 6 weeks, we're going to do this thing that I've had in my head for 10 years. And I just, God had put up several roadblocks about what I thought I was supposed to do. And I just said, I'm going to do this class I've been dreaming about for 10 years, that you teach them all at once. And you show them the struggle of what is hiding behind this exam room door are these stories that if you could just watch somebody else go through something, you think you have it bad. When your story got introduced to your team, you inspired Kim, your coach, who inspired me, who inspired all of the ones watching you, saying, well, I don't want to eat those sardines, but if Cindy's doing it, I'm going to do it. And you look at, I'm going to brag on you a little bit here. Oops, not that one, this one, wrong button. That here's where the 21 days starts, and you can start to see these ketones rise. And here's the 100 line right here, where the blood sugars start to dip below that, and she's got ketones up to 4. This is within the first week of class. And then she gets to the second week, and we know that she's got a big blood test coming up at the end of like the first few days of February. So again, ketones are rising. I just want you to see the scale over here on the side. The top of the scale is 8. So her ketones are just rising. That top of is the 100. So she has only double-digit blood sugars that her class is seeing every day, that her coach is saying, you got to check out this woman. You got to see how well she's doing. She is trying to starve that breast cancer, and her oncologist is learning through her story. So if we click back over to this slide, that September 23rd, that number of 16, it went from almost 8 to 16 in just a few short days, as the biopsy got done and the doctor's trying to come up with what is the right treatment and has it spread to anywhere else. And that's an ominous sign, like, oh my goodness, it's doubling within a week, or within a few weeks, within a month. And the next slide was November, right after those seeds of radiation were placed, or the treatment of that came. And then in the middle of December, she's cut it down to 0.7. So now we're not quite back to where we were in February of last year, but at the end, or in the middle of the 21 day, you get this blood test done, and it shows that you've got 0.3 for your markers. So talk about just having the anticipation of that, but also when you told your oncologist about this, how did you explain it to him? What you were doing?
Oh, about the diet?
Yeah.
So the day that the report came back, I got it as an email and a notification, and it was late in the afternoon. It was, probably 5 o'clock-ish. And I was pulling it up and looking at it, and my phone rang. Well, it was my oncologist.
He's no longer, you're no longer anonymous. He has got you on speed dial.
Right. He called me and goes, Cindy, have you seen your report? And I said, I'm looking at it right now. And he said, oh my gosh, it's going down. It's going down. And I said, I know. He said, oh, I really wanted it to be at 0. And I said, I did too. I did. I was thinking, it needs, please let it just be at 0. But in the moment that I read it, I went, oh, I know what you're doing. I mean, I knew what God was doing. He was saying, you're going to stay this course on this 21 day, and you're going to prove that making all these life changes, these physical chemistry changes in your body, it's not just that radiation. It's how are you going to keep a cancerous stem cell from finding another place to hook onto.
Right.
I've got to make my inner environment, the cancer can't build a home. It just can't, because,
Right. When I think back to your story too, as you had, had this cancer removed from your body, and you had all these margins that were clean. And then I'll just do a little better description of what happened when those silicone implants went in. Not everybody has reaction, but you had a horrific reaction. Like it's called a mast cell or an eosinophil reaction, where the whole body is just saying repel, 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 and they're throwing steroids at you, anything to get you to stop itching, because your body is just reacting. Mm-hmm. But what my brain does when I hear that story is, she's brewing cortisol and she's making blood sugars higher. And if there's a little bitty seed anywhere from that cancer that's still hanging out, we can make it very uncomfortable for that cancer to try and set up a home again, as long as the blood sugar stays low and the ketones stay high. But when you're pouring steroids in her and she's itching every moment of the day for like a year, right?
A year.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a year.
So
it was over.
I mean, even, anybody, even if you don't have cancer, that has a mast cell reaction like that for a year, I mean, it's like bathing you in steroids, bathing you in the kind of hormones that will promote growth of cancers and denying your cells that anti-inflammatory, beautiful state that you're clearly in right now and have been in for this, last few weeks, but that you were trying to get to, that you're saying, I know I should, I'm checking my numbers and I know I shouldn't put on weight. And, here's the things that makes cancer grow. And we tell patients that. But when you're throwing steroids on them, when you're living through a nightmare that you can't stop itching, I loved reading your story again as I was preparing for this, that she said, as if a miracle happened. I woke up from that surgery and there was no itching. And the surgery was when they removed those implants. And it was just clearly something your body, like the medications you've said, just doesn't like anything we're touching it with. And the burden had been lifted. The itching was stopped. But the seed was clearly probably brewing somewhere in there. And even though the marker was 0, we know that those markers are, we don't get it to even go off of 0 until at least a few cells are producing that DNA. And, when your doctor says, so as you've tried to talk about a ketogenic diet to him, has there been pushback? Has it been something he's curious about? Tell me how.
Well, in their offices, they they have one job. I mean, they sell poison. And it sounds hard, but that is what they're selling. That's all they have. They have that, and they have pharmaceutical medicine. Yeah. It's not their job to be my nutritionist or my psychologist, or they're single-minded in what they do. And I don't hold that against him, but that wasn't going to work for me. So when he says, he would say, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "Well, do you really want to know?" And he said, maybe not. Don't tell me. And then, so the night of the marker, when the marker came in, he called me on his way home from work, from the office. And we chatted for a while. He said, "Okay, all right, I'm ready for you to tell me what you're doing. What are you doing? Now I can talk." He said, there are no listening devices anywhere. You can tell me what you're doing. And I said, okay. And I told him, that I was in this class, and I, he said, "Well, wait a minute now, what's her name?" And I told her, I said, "Dr. Boz." He's driving down the road, and he said, "Wait a minute, I need to pull over." He said, "I just looked her up on YouTube." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, sardines?" He said, "I like sardines. They're not so bad." He said, "But the thing I want to know about, Cindy, is the fasting. Like, that you can fast for that many days, like really just water?" And I said, "Yeah, just water." Right. He said, "No, I'd die." I said, "No, you won't." He said, "I want to learn how to fast." I said, "Okay, well, now you have Dr. Boz's hookup." Yes. I said, "Just follow her." I said, I think she wouldn't mind if you actually contacted her. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I said, "But I'm the example."
Yeah, one of the gifts that I announced at the last conference I was at was it was a room full of physicians, and the 21-day was going to start the next week. And I said, anybody who wants to be a student in this class, I think this is how medicine is going to be done in the future, because the amount of education that you need to give to patients to figure this out, and to the physicians, the other physicians who did do this, who sat in as they tried to be incognito, that they weren't doctors, they're just students, which lasted about 3 days in their classroom because they were outed saying, "How do you know so much about this?" But in fairness, the textbooks teach you about the metabolism, the steps of how do you get a group of people to change behavior. I mean, when you have cancer sitting right in front of you, you think, "Oh, they can do it. They can do this." No, they can't. They can do it for a few days, and then they're human. They get sad. They get weak. They have temptations. The other thing I like, what things can your doctor offer you? They were offering you donuts in the oncology rooms. You're like, right. You can change some of those things, but you can't.
Right. Or they tell you, don't lose too much weight because they give you Ensure, or they tell you, go out there and eat that ice cream and milkshakes. And it's like, no, that is not what a person with cancer needs to be consuming.
Right.
So,
So it does bring me to the other questions. I want to go back to these, I got to make sure I clicked the right one. Dang, I did it wrong again. Here we go. So here's the January 29th through February 4th. That's the end of the second week of class. And again, ketones are rising, glucose is staying nice and low. You get to that third week of class, and again, really impressive ketones. This scale goes up to 9 for those ketones. Again, the ketones are in blue, and the blood sugars have really, come down right at the end here is a 56 blood sugar with a 6.8 on her ketones. So again, what we were looking for here for Cindy was to really push her metabolism, watch to see how well she could recruit ketones into her circulation, keep that blood sugar low as a place that the removal of inflammation is really the key for her to not only heal from the radiation treatment, but also to not allow the seeds of any cancer to flourish. So then at the end, we talked about a tool that we offered to folks in the 21 day. And you and I discussed this of whether or not it's something you should take advantage of. Do you want to tell them the tool, or do you want me to tell them the tool?
Oh, you tell them.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that I've been very curious about, and again, this is, there's no textbook written on this, but it is to use micro dosing or very small dosing of the GLP-1 hormones, such as Ozempic or Mounjaro. But I don't want to start that in patients who aren't in a state of ketosis, who don't really appreciate, who have this kind of like your doctor, a theoretical idea of how ketones are supposed to be high and glucose are supposed to be low, but the action it takes to actually deliver that is a mythical. It's like a fairy tale. They don't know exactly how to do it. So to walk people through and create the chemistry in all 200 students that they have glucoses that are significantly improved at the end of those 3 weeks, ketones that are just percolating through every cell in their body. And they've been in this protected environment where they're in a support group, that they show up to class every morning, and I walk them through a case, and then they go into their small groups, and they have these friends by the end of 3 weeks that have struggled through sardines and struggled through a fast. And that's great, but that's not the kind of support that can be offered every day, right? Or at least I can't afford that. But so we said, well, if there's one thing that I was very curious about, it's if you added a very small dose of this hormone that's known to be low as you age, but also in people who've struggled with food addiction, who've struggled with overeating, or who've had insulin resistance. And although your case came into the class where you didn't need to lose much weight, it was truly a metabolism that we are trying to keep those blood sugars low, push those ketones high. And you're doing great. But we did offer you that prescription. And if I recall, you filled it, but you haven't taken any. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah. I haven't taken it yet.
Right.
We just got, tutored on it yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I'm more than halfway through with my 72-hour water fast. I knew I was going to be speaking with you today, so I said,
nothing like peer pressure after class.
Right.
Well, so, when I look at I'm just going to go to today's numbers and make sure I show off how good she really is, because this is amazing. Go over here. Yeah, her ketones are 8.4 and glucose of 68. And I really want people to appreciate, you can make people's ketones look really sexy if they have been metabolically, like not stressing, like not doing what you've been doing, but to be a month into this metabolic surge and still be able to bounce her ketones up like that in a fast and keep that glucose down. There is nothing but, first of all, I mean, good on you. You are doing amazing. You don't need a GLP-1. You're doing great. Right. Which brings me to the point of this was to say, Cindy, I don't think that the tool is this standalone, this is how you're going to fix your problems. I do know that we had this opportunity that we knew there's some rules that were about to change, and the price of this prescription was going to change. So we said, well, let's write the prescriptions for the people that we think we can possibly manage, which is still the jury's out how many folks we can manage. But also it's cases like yours where boy, she's doing great. She's surrounded by support. Her glucose is down. Her ketones are high. Nothing like the added peer pressure of a live show to boost her through another challenge. But there is, the sun keeps rising and falling every morning, and life goes on. And that support group, how often does your support group meet after class? Again, our responsibilities for 21 Day is over, but what did your class decide to do?
We meet 9:00 on Monday mornings.
Perfect.
But forget the Zoom meeting. I mean, we text each other all day long. We've got a group text going that if somebody has a question, it gets blasted over, and someone is there to answer or support them, and then we talk. I mean,
right.
It's beautiful. It really is.
Honestly, I think that is when I hear the statements, oh, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. I think of anybody doing something difficult. Well, it's not sustainable if you're all alone. But when you've been educated together, when you really do form a friendship of, your case is a very good example that we can't get people to do this when there's nobody struggling. It's when people are struggling and you say, okay, I want to lose the extra 10 pounds, but I don't have breast cancer. I haven't had a heart attack. I haven't buried all the things that are on your list of pain, that when you share it in a group like that, it lifts the burden for you and it privileges the ones that you share it with. And I think that's why in a group text, you can say, oh, doesn't it bother you? No, I want to be there for that person. And someday I hope they're there if I need that help. And that reciprocation, that makes the impossible possible.
Yes, it does. It really does. And I think all of us in the class, we all feel like we've grown in this tight community that we have. And we're different. We have two that are much younger than us. Four of us have white hair. We're 70, 75, but three of us have breast cancer or had breast cancer. Well, and one of them, I just found out yesterday that, yesterday morning, I didn't realize it, but she's triple negative. Oh, she's HER2 positive. And I'm like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And she is doing it all through diet. She is fighting it on her own. And I thought, wow, that's a hero to me. Right. I mean, to stay on top of it. So, she needs our support. She needs all of us behind her.
So let's just share for the audience, because I don't think we've done a good job at saying, why would I have written a GLP-1 for somebody who, your numbers are looking great. The opportunity of timing was one of those things. But do you have an appreciation for why I wanted you to at least have that in your toolbox, or should I explain that again?
You do it. I but I want you to do it well.
Okay. So looking at that hormone, there are, we know that that's going to be a lower hormone, that GLP-1, that GIP. And again, the ones that are coming out in the next year have a third agonist or booster for glucagon. So it is a stimulant for these hormones that talk to the brain and the body about how energy flows in the body, how hunger is responded to, and how well your system responds to, or at least you respond to a stimulus for eating. And, in a time where 400 years ago, your access to the amount of foods would have been part of the treatment. Like you just don't have that much access to food. Well, we have the absence of that in today's world. The abundance is a part of the pathology. The ease of getting the ice cream and the wine, it's real. But in a case where I've said a few times, and I've told my team we need to do a video on this without getting in trouble, is you want to see the best predictor of breast cancer. It's not a mammogram. It is the list of symptoms and risk factors for insulin resistance, including that increased glucose for years on end, increased stress for years on end, decreased ketones for years on end. And when you've already played Russian roulette twice, not just with heart disease, but with the breast cancer, and now we've got this little naughty thing brewing somewhere, if we are giving you the best possible chance, it's keep that glucose low, help her suppress that hunger. The 21 Day got you a really good kickstart, and maybe you won't need that medication for a year. But if you do, that's a way to say her blood sugars slowly crept up, the stress slowly crept up, something happened, the sleep, whatever. And there's a million ways your blood sugar rises. I mean, there are some side effects from that, and there's a few of them that I told you that I would love to hear some of what your worries are about taking them and why we might be a little cautious about that.
Mm-hmm. So you're asking me to spill it?
Yeah, well, I'll spill it for you if you want. I mean, it's a common side effect. If your bowels move slower than the average person, and then you take this medication, right on the warning, it says you may be a few days without having a bowel movement, and that'll you want to scare people. You screw with their poop. Like if you make it go too fast, they talk to you about it. If you make it go too slow, they talk to you about it. And the ketogenic diet already will slow that down, especially in, many of my patients where they move their stools because of the fiber that they've been eating for the last 50 years. So when we shift gears and say you are going to have a very lower volume going through your gut, and it can really slow down their bowels, that the dose that we are looking for in a case where we are augmenting her metabolism because of an underlying breast cancer, it's going to be half of the beginning dose, and it might even be half of that. So it's called microdosing, but it still does have a 2-week, that first couple of weeks will slow down the bowels. It can be very unsettling about that. And it isn't going to kill you. It is going to mess with your mind. Like, isn't it about time we get a bowel movement going on here? It really does. It messes with people. But it does also go away, especially at those microdosing. That's what we've seen anyway, that it'll slow it down. But just like the ketogenic diet, after they've been in a strong metabolic state, we see their bowels learn how to move the stool in a way that doesn't depend on the stretch factor, which is what the fiber would have done. The chia seeds we had talked about too is something that I love. Goes in one end, comes out the other. But in people who have severe problems with moving their stools, they're already, they give you a test question that say the 90% of people will have either 3 bowel movements a day or 1 every 3 days. So that's normal. That's normal for humans. So if you're closer to the 1 every 3 days and then you go on a ketogenic diet, you're like, it's been a week, doc. This is not fair. And in those patients, I'll have, I'll tell them to take tablespoons until they have a bowel movement, but it'll sometimes be, they'll scoop the chia seeds by 1/3 or 1/4 of a cup, and they'll do 3 to 4 of them a day in those first few days. And it's stretching their bowel, it's getting that primed, and then they taper that down over the course of a couple of weeks. And as they do that, their bowel learns to get at least a little closer to normal. So I tell you that trick because you're not the only one who's struggled with that. It is a difficult thing to say on a live TV show or live YouTube video, but I share that to say it wouldn't mean that you have a contraindication for using a GLP-1. We know that it will slow them down, but especially if those sugars start to rise, it would be something where I'd say, don't be afraid of that drug. Use the tool if we need it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I'm in it with you. I mean, my team, my classmates, 4 of them have already taken their injection, and we talk all day long. How do you feel? What are you doing? So
it's a play-by-play. Yes. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to do this while I have a support system.
Right. Well, yeah. we said, the program was, again, we were kind of building the plane as we were flying it, that we had 200 students. We thought maybe 30 would sign up for this. Dang, nearly 90 of them signed up for it, or more than that. And we just capped. We said, I don't think we can manage any more than that. And please pray for the nurse because that's a lot. But before you hop away, I am going to just ask if you had any advice for other women out there that are trying to navigate through the story of a ketogenic diet and a breast cancer. Do you have anything you'd tell them?
Well, I think it's different for everyone where you are in your life, and who you are responsible for, and I think all that matters in how you make a decision in what your plan is. Who do you need to take care of still? Yeah. And I was at a point in my life where, I need to take care of myself. And I certainly didn't want to be a burden in any way to any member of my family or to my dear friends. I wanted to tackle this as best I could. And if this was what was going to take me out, I wanted to do it with as much grace. And I wanted to have a beautiful transition. I mean, I want to be vital until I'm not able to be vital anymore. And because I chose the no chemo, and I'm still having difficulty with the aromatase inhibitor. I can't really take it, but your wisdom, and then of course my oncologist is going to say 1 a week, just take 1 a week. We'll see where that goes. But I say, what do you want it to look like, and what's your why? Yeah. At my age, at 71, I wanted to be full of grace. Yeah. And I think when you are taking medications that break your body down, that's not going to be very pretty. Yeah. And I can tell you that I am on this course because I'm going to prove that it works. I really believe that it's my best hope, right, my best chance at being well again, to be cancer-free. Mm-hmm.
And I loved the statement you said earlier, somewhere in our conversations, where you said, even if I have a body free of cancer, this life, this energy, this feeling is the gift that says, I'm going to keep living this way. And I would say that to, all my patients that I've walked to the edge of life, where the last few steps are a lonely journey, the ones who have the vitality to be engaged until the last few steps. That's the gift I hope for in my life, that you don't know if you'll get that privilege, but that's what I pray for my patients, and I'll pray for you. And Thank you. I do know that your story is, the number of times I've disappointed patients because my outcome wasn't perfect either. And I've had them mad at me. When you were telling that story, I instantly saw the patients that I disappointed. And they talk.
And I try to make it up to him, because he's right. I can text him right now and he would answer me. Within minutes. Right. Truly, I don't know how he does it, but I'm so grateful that I know he has grown in this journey. Right. We wander through this, and I know I certainly have, because I love him. I text him and tell him I love him. I hope you're having a great day. I love you.
That's
because
real.
It's true.
Right. I learned from the patients who's scorned me. I learned. Mm-hmm. I had to walk in a humble season that said, I can't undo it. I can just do the best job from this point forward. And then that pain of that story will change his life. There will be patients in your wake, long after your life is over. If he's still serving patients, your memory will help him do a better job.
And he's young enough that I think he will be part of the shift that's going to happen, because you're a healer. You're a healer. That's what makes you wake up in the morning. He is that as well. But they have to live in this box and these rules and regulations, and whoever is managing their system. Right. I know he would love for it to be different, and I believe that about most of our medical doctors and nurses.
Well, I appreciate you. I am going to take a minute here. There's a couple things where I said I would do a generous thing for somebody, and she doesn't know I'm going to do this, so stay tuned for this quick announcement. And for those of you in the chat, if you will please give praise to Cindy. It is a lot to ask somebody to say, come and tell about one of the most vulnerable moments of your life, something that will really make you question what's God got in store for me. And not only did she do a great job in the 21 day, but coming on the show, on a live show, is kind of stressful. And she has, you'll continue to inspire me. May I look as beautiful of gray hair when I'm 71. And may I also have the courage to just stand in the wake of, even when tragedy strikes, find the best version of you and put that foot forward. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm going to hop over here to this website because I told this person I would do two things. Go to Boston Carnivore. Okay. So this woman, I got to turn off this little light here. There we go. All right. Boston Carnivore is Diane Ladd. Okay. She is a YouTuber and she has 228 subscribers, but she has one of the coolest stories about the ketogenic diet. And I want to give her a shout out that if you're looking for somebody to follow on YouTube, please subscribe to her channel. Again, she only has 228 subscribers. She's only put out 11 videos, but she has the most courageous story about her multiple sclerosis, what she's been through. She lives in the city of doctors, in Boston, where all the research happens. And I hope you find her story inspiring. I hope we can give her YouTube channel a little boost by just encouraging her to keep telling her story amongst the doctors who say there's no evidence for that. There is too. There just is small amount for multiple sclerosis. And her journey is, I have several friends where multiple sclerosis has put some of them in the grave. Others were able to, at least keep them out of the ditch, but it's a really heavy burden. And she is doing a great job of telling her story. So Boston Carnivore, Diane Ladd, give her some subscribers. She deserves that. I have two other things I'm going to say before I let go. One of them is on our favorite, Dr. Boz favorites page. Let's see if I have it on here. You know what? I don't think I put it on here. I'm just gonna have to tell you this. Well, these are all the things where I put my name behind several of the products, but that's not what I wanted to tell you. Let me see if I can go to here. Camera only, that's what we'll do. I have two places I'm speaking in the next 6 months, and I try to warn people where I'm gonna be in hopes that if you want to join these conferences, I donate my time to go speak at them because I want to engage with people. And the first one is I am going to speak at the keto carnivore, or no, the low carb cruise. So if you go to Facebook and you type in low carb cruise, I was trying to find the link there for you, but I don't have it in front of me. That low carb cruise is the next place that I'll be speaking. This year's cruise goes to Alaska, which I'm super excited to do. I think it leaves the second week of June. So if you're looking for a fun adventure, it's not carb free. You can have a few carbs on the cruise, but it really is full of great speakers. And again, what we try to create on the 21 day is a sense of community. So they do a great job as well, and I like supporting their efforts. The other place that I have been asked to speak that I just said yes to is Low Carb San Diego. So Low Carb Boca I did right before the 21 day, and I told Doug that if it went well, he could invite me to the Low Carb San Diego, and we got some pretty good praises from that lecture. So I will be in Low Carb San Diego. There are a few other announcements, but I'll save the rest of them for next week. I do want to do a big shout out because I had a major setback in the last 21 day where when we sent out emails for people to get into the class, the email had been blocked because they took us off of they said, do not subscribe, and they desubscribed us from our email list. So we have put forth a really strong effort that the next year of emails, I'm going to write with one of my favorite employees. And we are going to use several of the questions and my explanations from the 21 day. When the students in the 21 day ask me questions, I get the space to answer the questions without YouTube checking to see if I broke a rule, without recording. But it helps to facilitate what are the questions that real live patients ask me about the ketogenic diet and how did I answer that? So we are putting forth a new campaign of asking and answering questions in the email in hopes that you don't desubscribe, that you are interested in these emails. And I'm really excited about this. I've tried writing interesting emails several different ways, and I think this is my well, first of all, it's my favorite idea because it really is answering the questions that folks are looking for. I would just ask you to pray for us that it goes as well as I think it's going to go. I think the last thing that I wanted to announce, one of our teammates did that I will show you, is if you look at this little thing right here on our website, that frequently asked questions, we have a new page that shows what are several of the questions that you guys write in and ask questions about. So I am just going to let you scroll through those. We have a bunch of videos as well that we think is a great way for folks to get their questions answered. We are past the hour, and I know that attention spans don't last this long, but I hope you enjoyed hearing Cindy's story, and I will pick up where we left off for questions next week. We'll see you next Tuesday, everybody. Have a great week.